Dayco is a dependable partner in the HVAC sector of the apartment management world.
You need people moving in, not moving out.
In fact, we have had several online reviews by apartment tenants that have been just, some of the most glowing reviews that you can imagine.
AC is a big part of that. As long you keep that AC running in the middle of summer is the key, with zero breakdowns. That's where we come in.
The only way they're going to see revenue is what we call resident retention. If you can't make a resident happy, then you're not going to keep a resident. And that's what the uppers want to see, your corporate levels want to see. They want to see that resident, they want to see their occupancies high, because if you hit 85% in this realm, you're not making money. You got to be 90% above to make money.
They need to have tenants in there, and they know that they need to be taking care of their tenants. So especially you run into a situation where you've got a bunch of old HVAC systems on the property and they're all starting to go down, that's a pretty vulnerable position for a property manager, and an extremely stressful situation for a property manager to be in.
It's definitely very rough before we get involved.
They want to keep their maintenance guys free to handle other problems.
Once we get involved, I'd say a lot of apartment complexes feel like we just took a huge weight off their shoulders.
In our initial discussions about doing the apartment work, we met a guy who is a regional maintenance director in the apartment world, and he decided to come in and work with us on this. And of course, he had a lot of contacts in that industry, which is kind of the key to getting into it. Is you have to have kind of that insider little black book of who's in charge of what properties and how they do. You have to have some insider knowledge of that, and we got lucky. So because we met up with a guy that was total insider for 20 years plus. He came and became an account manager for us, and it just took off. So that was our secret, is just getting the right guy on board.
We did it well, and we did it competitively, and we got asked to do a little more of it. We ran into one particular account that we began working for, and they were an investor. They basically bought properties and went through them, turned them basically. You might say flipped them, but we ended up working for this one customer, doing literally hundreds of AC systems for them over multiple properties for several years. We began to see where the apartment community was kind of underserved by the legitimate professional part of the industry. In other words, they're looking for a price point. Okay, that's understood. They need it done right away because they've got tenants that are knocking on their door and ringing their phones off the hook when something's not right. So they need responsiveness, and we brought that. We were able to come up with a price point and still take care of our needs that the apartment sector can live with and can actually see the value of. So we've got those two things going for us. Thirdly, many, if not most, of the other HVAC companies really shy away from it. So it is an underserved sector.
There's an attitude in the general attitude in the HVAC world that the apartment work is not interesting. And the reason for that is the appearance is that there's less money involved, because the apartment world works under budgets and has certain numbers they're trying to achieve, so the appearance is that the money's not there. But if you get into it and you partner up with these apartment communities, you start to figure out the ways that you can help them to get things done under their budget. As a matter of fact, what you find out over time is that by getting a professional in there to do the HVAC work, which is very technical, it's not like carpet or drywall or paint or a lot of the other things that go on in the apartment world. HVAC takes a level of professionalism to get it done in such a way that lowers your costs, right? Because if you get professional installations up front, you're going to have a lot lower service on the back end, a lot lower warranty work and service work on the back end. So what we've found is that over time is that the more volume we do out there in the installations and the service that we do, actually the more we can save them and we can keep them under budget, because they're spending a little bit more on the front end to get the installations done, but they're finding that their cost of maintenance and upkeep on those systems over time is way lower. Instead of them trying to maintain older systems by repairing them over and over and over again. So it helps them out a lot.
We ask whenever possible and to be able to have 2 systems to install on a particular day with one of our crews. We find that when you combine 2 systems, the revenue and the bottom line approximates what we would get from installing one system in a regular residential setting, and that's fine with us. And secondly, CapEx stuff.
It's a good idea because you have all of these places in one location, so you don't have to drive back and forth across town.
We like doing HVAC in apartments on a larger volume in the off season. And we've been able to work with several owners/managers to take on CapEx projects with them in the off season so that we can keep our guys busy in the traditionally slower times of the year for HVAC and give them some even more attractive pricing. We find that some of the most mutually satisfying and successful relationships that we develop are when we have some access, involvement, communication with kind of the mid or upper level management that's not necessarily property based. And there we can look into things that are other than the urgent, take care of me now, they're yelling at me and get cheap. What we can do then is exchange values with your management people, see what really you're looking for at this property or in general with your properties, and what we can do to satisfy those needs. That works very well when we can develop that relationship, that conversation.
Actually, what we can help them do better than anybody else is be able to project budgets so they know what their spend is going to be on that property for HVAC for over the next year to 3 years. By getting into that install mindset, right? Knowing what your cost per install is going to be, because we charge one price. I mean, there's within a few $100s, you get 10 different types of systems, one price. So if you called me out to your property and said, give me an assessment of the system, I can say you have 72 installs that need to be done, and now you can say, and I'll help you say, we can do these ones Q1 next year, and you have, here's your cost per install, here's how many installs you need, now I've got a budget for replacement for that property for next year. It's simple.
There comes a time when you've got to say, this is all we can do, we need help.
And we want to be the HVAC provider that you can rely on, that you can count on.
Especially if you're managing a property that has a lot of old systems, as well as I do, those systems are going to act up. There's probably going to be a good amount each summer. They're starting to have issues.
Trust us. We know that you have a business to operate too, and we know that your goal is to make sure that your customers, your tenants are happy.
I will walk the property. I will take a look at things. I'm free. It's not going to cost you anything for me to at least just go around and take a look and help you come up with a forecast for what your next year is going to look like, especially with how complicated it's gotten with the federal regulations, the refrigerant change, the SEER changes, the efficiency changes, everything that's going on. It's pretty hard to stay on top of all that, even if you're an HVAC professional. I can't imagine if you're trying to juggle that with a million other things that you've got going on a property.
So if you'd like to hear more and you've got some projects and you'd like to develop a relationship with Dayco, we'd be happy to hear from you today.